Zambia's founding. Zambia's independence struggle against Britain was for the most part bloodless. Rather, it was a massive campaign of civil disobedience based on Mahatma Gandhi's principle of nonviolence, except for a small but definitive rebellion called Cha Cha Cha. Like many Southern African states, Zambia's history was largely influenced by the presence of the British South Africa Company, BSSC, founded by a British national, Cecil John Rhodes. In 1888, Cecil Rhodes spearheaded British commercial and political interest in Southern and Central Africa and obtained mineral rights through concessions with local territorial chiefs. The country was initially partitioned into two territories, namely Northwestern Rhodesia and Northeastern Rhodesia. The two territories were combined in 1911 to form Northern Rhodesia with Livingstone as its capital. In 1924, Northern Rhodesia was put under direct British control as a colony, and the capital was subsequently moved to Lusaka in 1935. The BSAC's major attraction to Northern Rhodesia was the discovery of vast copper deposits in the area now called Copperbelt Province of Zambia. Mining in Zambia did not begin with the advent of the Europeans. For centuries, indigenous Africans had mined there before on a subsistence level and developed metalworking techniques. The first commercial mine was opened at Ron Antelope, now Luansha Town, in 1928. The indigenous miners were an obvious source of labor by the new European miners. From their earnings, the indigenous miners were expected to pay a hard tax to the European settlers if they were lucky enough not to have been evicted from their land. The European settlers sought for less dependence on the British colonial establishment by pushing for closer ties with Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and Nyasaland, now Malawi. To fulfill this goal, the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland was formed in 1953. In the 1950s and 60s, a wind of change driven by African nationalism was a growing phenomenon on the continent of Africa, and Zambia was part of it. In 1959, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda and Zambia's founding president formed the United National Independence Party, UNIP, based on Pan-African ideals. Dr. Kaunda and UNIP had a twofold mission to abolish the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, which promoted the rights of the European settlers at the expense of indigenous Africans, and to seek independence from colonial rule. At the core of the controversy against the Federation were increasingly insistent African demands for greater participation in government on one hand, and European fears of losing political control on the other. Northern Rhodesia became the center of much of the turmoil and crisis associated with the last years of the Federation. The Federation was consequently resolved on December 31st, 1963, and the following year in 1964, Northern Rhodesia attained its independence and became Zambia. The British colonial establishment had profited immensely from the mineral wealth from Zambia. They instead chose to send and spend a huge portion of this wealth on the development of Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. They built a significantly huge industrial, social, educational, and governmental infrastructural base in Zimbabwe. Zambia was the cash cow for the development of Southern Rhodesia, and there was a stark difference in infrastructure development between the two countries. This is the evidence to the fact that Zambia suffered a colossal loss of capital through a transfer of wealth born out of the sweat and hard work of Zambian workers. The British South African Company, BSSC, owned Zambia's mineral rights. Cecil Rhodes contracted Ron Select Trust, RST, and Anglo America Corporation, ASC, to explore the mineral wealth on Zambia's Copperbelt province. The BSSC employed local Zambians cheaply and externalized all the profits from lucrative mining prices.